Good morning, Facebook. Happy Monday. I want to thank you for coming to Pat with me. Yo, I'm back on the heart again. For some reason, God just keeps putting me back on there. Obviously, there are things He's working out within my heart. And I am just willing to be vulnerable enough to expose and to shed light on how we show up in relationship. I'm speaking on to marriages because I am married, but this can go for any relationship, right? But this is for my married folks because when Scripture talks about marriage, it is a photograph, right? It's that snapshot of God's glory being brought to life through us, through my husband, and through me as his wife. And so cultivating and pouring in God's love and the fruits of the Spirit to bring him to life, in a sense, right? Bring him to life in our lives. And that being shown to others is how God is glorified. That's how he is represented. And so matters of the heart are important to us because the heart is literally the beating instrument of why we can live, of why we do live. It's how we function. And it's one of the involuntary organs in our body because we can't wake ourselves up, right? We don't tell our heart, oh, keep beating at this beat per minute because that's the pace I need you to know. Based off of how we feel and how we're moving in our day, our heart already knows what to do. We don't have to tell it. And that's by design. God crafted it that way. But I was watching a podcast with the Perrys. I'm sure you guys are familiar with. If you're not, get familiar with them. Jackie Perry is a powerhouse, and her husband works alongside her. But this was a podcast they did maybe a year or two ago. I can't remember. I know I saw originally this podcast about a year ago. However, within it, the title was Guarding Your Heart. And I thought I knew what that meant, but they broke it down in a way that helped me to understand, how I show up in my marriage and how I was very wrong. And I can admit I was very wrong in how I was approaching things, on how I saw things, on how I felt my marriage should go. And the scripture they reference is Proverbs 4:23, which tells us to keep your heart with all diligence, for out it springs the issues of life. And even when I think on that, keep your heart with all diligence, like you are aware of some things that are in your heart and on your heart because you live with you, like, so you know some things. And all it's saying is be aware of those things and work on them. Like, you know your vices, you know what moves you, what doesn't, what upsets you and what doesn't, right? You know that those things are deep rooted in your heart, but there are many things you don't know. You don't know to what depth and to what length those things are. But the point is that the things that you are aware of, that you continue to work on, you continue to get better at, you continue to ask God to help you to root and to pour in his love, because everything springs from your heart. Everything springs from your heart. And I'm speaking to my ladies, my wives, we are very emotional creatures. And so when we talk or we're trying to translate something to our husbands because we need them to understand it to get us, we come from a very feeling, like we're giving feelings. We're not giving logic. We're giving feelings and emotions because we feel a certain way. You did something that pissed us off, or we just really want to convey Like, this particular thing means so much to me and I need you to understand it. But they're logical. But that scripture is reminding us to take those things that we know is heartfelt for us, but maybe not good for us, and to take it to God and get help. Ask Him to decipher those things for us, because we're too emotionally attached and involved to see our way through it. But that is where my message stems from. And I feel like I've already said a lot and I'm already at 5 minutes. I don't know how to keep these messages short. Anyways, my message is actually called A Clean Heart. And referencing from that scripture, the question she brought up was, are we nurturing our husband in a way that continually leads him to choose God? Or are we nurturing our husbands in a way that continually sins against him, which in turn makes him sin against us? Because we know that when we don't understand something, and we tend to blow it off, at least for me, if I don't understand it, I'm probably blowing it off because I'm thinking, that don't make sense, whatever, man. And because I don't understand it, now I'm sinned against my husband, because it's an offense nonetheless. It's an offense. It's a prick at his heart because I'm not understanding where he's coming from. And now I don't even care to understand because you done frustrated me so. Because I chose not to take the time to sit back and evaluate or reflect on whatever that issue was. And even if it is vice versa, let's say it's me wanting him to understand it, I didn't take the time to sit back and really get up the proper tools and temperance that inside of me to really deep root what the issue is, so I could come up with a reasonable solution or even question that could help him help me. Instead, I gave him emotion. I gave him all my grief, all my confusion, all my frustration, and I left him feeling like this. What am I to do? And that is just not healthy, nor is it good, nor does it help anything. But I read in Psalms where it talks about, well, actually, I want to go to Matthew 13 and 15 first, because there it speaks to a hardened heart. And what happens over time is our heart will begin to harden because we cannot understand each other in this thing called marriage. Because all he hears is rah, 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 because all we're giving is emotion, no real logic to what we're saying. We just feel this way and you need to understand how we feel. And he's giving us logic, and we can't depict that because there's no feeling in that. And so we're missing each other at every angle. But what it's causing is a hardness of the heart over time, and eventually this is what happens. So in Matthew 13 it says, Matthew 13 and 15, for the hearts of these people are hardened, and their and their ears cannot hear, and they have closed their eyes. That's what's happened in your marriage. Because over time, now your heart is just like, forget it. I done said this thing a million times. I done said it soft. I done said it hard. I done said it in all the ways I know to say it. You just ain't listening. You just don't care. You just don't love me. You just don't respect me. You just don't want to hear what I have to say. And we run with that. And now not only is our heart shut, but our ears are shut. And our eyes are closed. So there's no way for anything to come in now. And you're left in in a predicament where it's going to just cause, instead of this, it's causing this. And then what? What do you do then? Where does that leave you? There's no alternative. You know where that leaves you. But today, I want to urge you to try something new, to try something different, to really take heart, to keeping your heart diligent, to doing your personal work in you with the help of God to bring light to your situations. A lot of times, or what I'm finding a lot of times, is when I take it to God and I lay it before Him, frustrations and all, because I don't even know what's going on in my own. I'm frustrated myself, so how is it I'm going to hand Him something and tell Him to figure it out for me, or figure it out for us? Let me figure out what it really is. What is the rooted issue? Because it's never what is presented. It's never the problem. I promise you, it is never the problem. It's never that. It's something deeper. There is a reason why you feel that way. There is a reason why that hurt you the way it did. There is a reason why it make you go all the way left when it seems so simple, when you really sit back and think about it. So that is the thing you need to find. That is the thing you should be praying for and asking for. But in Psalms 51:10, it tells us, Scripture says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew in me a right spirit. We need Him to restore the joy of His salvation in us. And Scripture says that, restore to me the joy of your salvation. We need His fruits of the Spirit poured back in us. We need for Him to give us the understanding and wisdom of what is happening inside of us, because we don't know the depths of our heart. All we know is what we feel. But feelings can be very misleading. Please understand that feelings are very, very misleading, and they will lead you right off a cliff. They will lead you right into divorce court. They will lead you astray, and they're very fleeting, meaning they come and they go. But if you come with a clean heart, allow God to wash that thing. And it speaks about that too in 51:7 of Psalms, where it says, He cleansed me with hyssop. And if anybody knows what hyssop is, that is actually a herb that's from the earth, right? It says, purge me with hyssop and I shall be clean, wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Hyssop is a cleaning agent, and it works actually on the digestive and if you have digestive or intestinal problems. I wouldn't brought me some, because I do. But the point of it is, or what he references is, you need something that's going to purge you, that's going to wash you of that thinking, of that mindset. And it's going to give you a renewed mindset, a renewed perspective on what it is you are thinking, what you're feeling. And if you allow God, if you sit with that, if you meditate on it, and you allow that word to get, His word to get into you, He will show you, He will begin to wash you and cleanse you of that old way of thinking and present to you something new, something that's actually beneficial, actually edifying for you and your spouse. And it can help to bring you this way instead of taking you further and further this way. And at the end of all that, there is joy to be found. There is restoration. There is peace that is locked in there. I happened upon this scripture, didn't even plan on reading it, but in Ephesians, I'm reminded in Ephesians 4, and I just put down 2, but I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, therefore, and it's speaking to the prisoners, says, the prisoners of the Lord, beseech you to walk worthy of the calling in which you were called, with lowliness. We were called to marriage. We got married. We were called to that. But it says to walk in it with lowliness, with gentleness, with long suffering, bearing one another in love. So that's your spouse. Sure is. Endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit, God's fruit of the Spirit, in the bond of peace. And we know that peace is a fruit of God's Spirit. And so when you're walking with the heart of God, with the mind frame of God, with the new perspective and mind shift, it's going to bring about lowliness, gentleness, long suffering. These are all just fruits of God's Spirit. You have no choice. It will bellow. He will pour those things into you because you're seeking Him first, because you're going to Him as your refuge and as your safety, right? He is your front line of defense. Yes, your husband is your physical defense, but God is your spiritual defense, and that's what we should be running to first. That's what we should be running to first. And in doing so, He's washing us. He's cleansing us. He's renewing our minds. He's giving us an understanding of our spouse and an understanding of ourselves and how we should move, think, and react to the things that we feel is not fair, we feel is not loving, we feel is not good, right? Like, He is helping us to be better at these things and to see it from a different perspective and to put a heart, to carry empathy, to carry understanding, to walk in wisdom, and to become the image of Him. Remember that snapshot picture I talked about in the beginning of marriage? Because that's what we represent. We represent God's glory, God's goodness, God's grace through marriage. And we cultivate these things by partnering together. And we're able to produce youngins and to guide them up in the same way. But we are God's front line. When we decide to enter into marriage, into that covenant, we are that snapshot for the world to see God's goodness. And running around with strife and malice and anger and confusion and tension because we don't feel like we're being heard, it's not reflection of God's glory. If this resonated with you in any way, let me know. Drop a comment. I know this is very long. I'm probably going to break this up and put it out like half, and do like part 1 and 2 so it doesn't seem so long. That was not my intent, but I just decided to keep going because I wanted to get it all out. But I pray that it blesses someone. I'm doing this thing, right? Life is life, and for all of us. But there are ways to have peace and joy and stillness, even in the midst of what we believe to be chaos. God is working. He is alive, and He is doing great things. Let us give it to Him, for He's the only one that can bring us through it. I love you all. Have a great Monday, and we'll chat again. Thank you. Bye.